Okay, so welcome to the Leadership Cafe. Uh, and what I wanted to talk about today was a little bit about communication. But really, I want to start with this idea that leadership begins with you, which is where the leadership tree philosophy comes from. Because leadership isn't about what you do so much as who you are in being a leader. And that makes such a difference. And the other thing to be really aware of is who you are is created through the way you see the world. And that's the beliefs that you have and the thoughts that you have. Each and every one of us sees a different world, experiences a different world because our brain does all of the creating of it. And in there's these filters, and it's kind of like wearing goggles. We see the stuff that confirms the beliefs and thinking that we have, and we don't see the stuff that's not confirming it. So when we talk about the leadership tree and when I do that work with individuals, we uncover those beliefs that are getting in the way of what you want to create. Because those are the ones that are really in a challenge to you. And it's also about knowing that when you hold those limiting beliefs or when you believe something's difficult for you, it will be difficult. And if you want to create and lead yourself in a way that is anything is possible, then let's find those thoughts that are in the way and change them. So we have systems at play, which is why it's a tree. A tree has beautiful systems. It has foundations, its roots, it has its trunk and its branches, and it has its leaves and its harvest. And each of those elements of a tree play a part. And within that, there are the life functions. And beyond that, there are other systems at play. There's a communication system in the woodland at play, for example, through the fungal network. Trees communicate to other trees. It's incredible. But each of us has our own systems at play, but we don't know they're there. Whatever outcomes we are getting, we have the perfect system for that outcome. If that outcome is something you don't want, then it's about finding the system you have in play. So for me, for example, I have a system in play that says I can't lose weight. But it's not that I'm not trying. It's just that my system, the current system that's at play in my body, that's fueled by my beliefs and my thinking, gets in the way of me losing weight. And so if I really wanted to address that, the first thing to do would be to go, I wonder what the system is that I actually have. Because it's not about me not trying, it's about the system I have in play not being the right system. So what's the system I already have? Okay, that system's not doing what I want it to do. So how can I create a new system? But if we just create a new system without finding out the old system, then both systems are at play and it becomes much more difficult to do anything. And so this is why leadership of yourself, leadership of others, is about first uncovering what's at play inside ourselves. So it's leadership that begins within you, not just with you, but within you. And today's session is about communication. I wonder what this slide is saying to you, this image is saying to you. This is my mum and dad. For context, my mum has Alzheimer's and really doesn't know who any of us are. But there's something being communicated in this slide. I wonder what you see in it.
You want me to answer?
Yes, please.
I see love.
Yeah, I see it too. It's my sister shared this image and it's beautiful, isn't it? Because you ask my mum who my dad is, and sometimes she'll go, "Oh, it's Peter," but she doesn't really connect to who Peter is. And other times she'll go, "I don't know."
It's
And you
well,
ask her if she's married, and she at one occasion she was asked if she was married, and she went, "Oh no, he hasn't asked me yet." They've been married over 60 years. But there's something in there, isn't there? There's no words.
there's a connection, isn't there? There's real eye-to-eye connection.
Yeah. There's a real connection. There's love in that image. It's a beautiful image. And this is the thing. We communicate in so many ways. And I know we're taught about we communicate with our bodies, we communicate with our facial expressions, we communicate with tone. But I would argue that we communicate with who we are being. And in this photograph, what is there is that the essence, the core of who my mom and dad are, is they are deeply in love. And despite the Alzheimer's, that's broken through all of that. You can see it.
Yeah.
And so when we come from a place of openness, of connection, doesn't matter what we're communicating. It doesn't matter how we communicate it in terms of the words that we use. If we come from a place where we are genuinely open and caring and connected, the message is irrelevant, because in the sense of no one message is harder than another. It's our attachment to the difficulty of the message that gets in the way. So, for example, if you are a doctor, you may have to give difficult messages to your patients. And it can, and you know, I've been there when people have said things like that doctor's bedside manner wasn't great. What they mean was by that, there was no compassion, there was no connection in the message, there was no love, care in the message. And yet there are others that are delivering the same difficult messages, and the patients are thankful for the compassion and care in the way that the message was put across. And that's not about the tone. That's not about the body language. That's not about the words. That's about who that person is. So who you are in a communication makes a massive difference. And who you are when you're leading a conversation is important. Where is your focus? So often we get caught on this idea of our focus is on the message we want to give, not on the person that we're communicating with. And when we're on the focus on the message, then we miss the whole purpose of communication, because communication is about connection. And we can give a message and it will not be received if we, in the way that we think it's been received, if we aren't in that place of connection. And somebody once asked me, you know, how do you do difficult conversations? Why is it that those people come out of conversations with you which have been really challenging, and they're thankful and they're calm and they're understanding and they're accepting? How is it? And I thought about this and I realized it's listening. It's because I don't focus on what I want to say. I focus on what is heard. And I listen to how the other person is in the conversation. There was always the leader that was called when there was what they would term challenging parents in reception, for example, or angry parents. There's another angry parent in reception. Can you come along? I wasn't the nearest of the leaders by any chance to the office, but I would come. And I would bring my listening, not my answers. I would bring my listening. I wouldn't bring my justification for what was going on. I would bring my listening. And more often than not, the outcome was that the anger of the parents subsided. We may often agree to disagree at the end of the conversation, but the anger of the parents subsided. And the anger didn't subside because they got what they wanted. The anger subsided was because they got heard. So listening is important. Another challenge that we can have is when we're trying to deliver a message but really we don't believe in that message. It's not who we are. It's not who our values are. So think about the communication. Is it aligned with your values? If not, why is that the message you're communicating? And finally, my question, and I want you to reflect on this. I don't necessarily want an answer, I just want it reflected on. When you're in conversation, how much of the time in that conversation, when you're not speaking, are you listening to the person? And how much of the time are you listening for what you say next and working out what you're going to say next? Because I've noticed this thing when I observe conversations. It's quite strange. It's almost like there's a group of people having a conversation with themselves. There is a connection in some respect in the theme of what is being said, but it's about taking turns as opposed to about listening. So we tend to learn this thing that we take turns when we talk. But we often forget that that listening is part of the conversation and talking isn't all of it. So next time you're listening, pay attention to, what am I thinking about anything? Am I thinking about what I'm going to say next? Am I thinking, or am I just listening? Because the deepest listening is listening without anything on your mind. And when you show up listening without anything on your mind, any message is possible. Because what you create by listening without anything on your mind is a really deep connection to the other person.
You want me to answer?
Not necessarily. This is a reflection.
Okay,
I want you to think about it
good.
and explore when you're talking and listening conversation next. So this is my dog, Billy, and he's listening intently here because there might be something on offer to him. So he's giving me his full attention and he's going, yeah, okay, what's coming up? Do I get a cuddle? Do I get some cheese? Are we going for a walk? Come on, let me know. And he's really listening. And the thing is, we can think we're good listeners. And even if we think we are good listeners, there's more listening to be had. Somebody once asked me, where are you showing up with your best listening? And where are you showing up with lacking of listening? And there was something really interesting that occurred to me there, is that I can often be absent in my listening in my home with my husband. It's kind of like he's just there. And yeah, he makes a sound occasionally, but I don't necessarily listen deeply. Yes, I'll connect with the conversation, but I'm not focused on the conversation. I'm not exploring it and hearing it and seeing it in a way that I'm seeing more and noticing more, in a way that I'm truly in harmony with what is being said, in touch with what is being said. Because when we do that, we pick up so much more than the words. But when we show up with our least listening, the words are there, we hear the words, we respond to the words, but we don't hear the meaning behind them. And in the same way, sometimes I wonder if we really check in, has somebody heard us? When we're communicating a message and well, I've communicated everything, and this is a really key thing in leadership. Communication is often where leadership fails. Not because they're not communicating in the sense that the act of communication isn't taking place. But communication isn't one way. Communication is multifaceted. And that's often where communication fails. And one element of that is our listening. So pay attention to your listening. And this is particularly important when we create agreement. Because so often I hear this thing about this agreement, and it's kind of like it's an action that one person decides on that the other person has to tick a box on. Oh, look, there's an agreement. I've said this, and you've nodded your head. That's not agreement. Agreement is created when we listen, we ask, we share, we make explicit our feelings, our thinking, our expectations, our wants, our desires, the things that we don't want, our fears, they all have to be expressed in that space. It's also important in that process to know what might go wrong and explore how we might pull ourselves back to agreement if something isn't in place. And then it's how do we know? And the how do we know is we listen, we check. And it's not about that person rabbiting back what we just said. It's about that person listening and expressing their understanding of what was said. And that being checked. Because words mean different things to different people. And we so often miss out on checking what those words mean. And that leads into this difficult messages. Be compassionate, be kind. That's what I mean by lead with love. Come from a place of humanity. Connect soul to soul, for want of a better phrase. Because then when you do that, you're holding that person. There's a safety in that space. You're holding them. There's no black hole for them to fall down because you're holding them. Listen the deepest you possibly can. Pay attention in every one of your senses to the other person. Give them that time and space. Be honest. Use real, clear language that gets to the point. Don't skirt around it. Don't try and find an easy way for you, because this is about you, not them. When you're trying to find ways of saying things softly, you're really not thinking about them. You're thinking about yourself. So be honest, be direct, be clear, check. This is what I said. I wonder how you understand that. What does that mean to you? Clarify in all of that. So really make the focus of the conversation the message that needs to be understood. Don't be fluffy. And above all, this takes time. So slow down. This is not a 10-minute conversation. This has to be given your undivided attention. So make sure you create the space for undivided attention. It's not, there's so much out there about create the space in the room, sit so that you're next to them, don't have a different in height, all this sort of practical stuff. Then there's the plan your opening words. Yeah, okay. But these are the key things. Kind, compassionate, loving, connect soul to soul. Listen with every element of your being. Be clear, be honest. Check understanding and slow down. When you do those conversations run beautifully. The person feels held. And the message may not be liked, but the way the message was communicated was respected. Any questions?
Not any useful ones.
Fair enough. I understand that. Okay. Let's